So we'll work on the next section where we'll learn if you have some features and you want to save them as a vector layer, how does QGIS do it? How do we do the same way to Python of how you can do this via the user interface? For this, we're going to use this class called QGIS Vector File Writer. This is a class that takes an existing layer or a new layer which has some features onto disk in a specified format. On the documentation, it says you have two ways to use it. You can call QGIS vector file writer.write as vector format, which saves the whole vector layer. So if you have a vector layer ready and you want to save it, you can just call this function, or you can create an object of this class and call .add feature. And you keep adding features to it, and it'll keep writing that to the disk. So we'll do it the second way. Since we are reading the data from one layer and we are writing to another CSV file, we can use that. The QGIS file writer, we have this create method where we'll create a new vector layer on disk. It says, what's the file name? What's the name of the file you want to create? What are the fields that are part of that? What's the geometry of the layer? Since we are trying to save it as a CSV file, we'll just say there's no geometry. Or if you're creating a line layer, you have to specify there's a line. CRS, what's the CRS of the layer? What's the transform context? This is the datum transformation settings. Typically, most users do not need to worry about it. Only advanced users who are worried about how one CRS is transformed with another CRS. There are some transform options available. You can specify those. And some other options around formats that we can specify. So let's learn how to take the previous script that we wrote, but instead of using pandas to save the CSV file, we'll use the QGIS API to do this. So I'm going to copy this file. In QGIS, we are working on our SF project. So I've selected the blocks layer in the SF project, and this is my code to do it. Let's go through the code. The first part of the code is similar. We just say select one layer, and we prompt some error if there is no layer selected. Then we want to save the layer. So we have to create this QGIS vector file writer class. It's an output path. We want to save it as output.csv. The layer.fields. The field name should be the same as the layer that we have selected. So if the blocks has 3 columns, the output should also have the same columns. Geometry type, since we want to save this as a layer with no geometry, it's just a CSV file. We just specify there's no geometry. You can specify type polygon, type multi-polygon, if it's a polygon layer, and so on. CRS, we just set the same CRS as a vector layer. Doesn't matter here because CRS is only applied in context of a geometry. And other are default options. While we are saving this, we have to specify some extra options that allow you to control exactly how a CSV file is created. And those are available under this class, QGIS vector file writer dot save vector options. Here we have to say what driver are you going to use? You are creating some file. What will be the format of that particular file? So we are using the CSV driver to do this. File encoding, whenever you write something, for example, I'm trying to export this via the interface. This is the same dialog that I need to configure using code. So when you try to save something with QGIS, it's using the same class. It's asking you what encoding you want to use, what CRS you want to use. And you have to specify all of those things via the code here. Also, there are some options that you can specify for each format. So when you're writing a CSV file, what is your separator? And say we want the field to be separated by comma. And by using this, we are using the same class that QGIS would use when it's saving the layer. And that will make your code much more consistent with how QGIS behaves. And once we have the writer object, we can just say for each feature in layer.getFeatures, writer.add feature. And once we're done, we delete the writer. And when we're doing this, you have created a writer object, you are writing things to it. They are all saved in the memory. They get returned to disk. When you just say I'm done, you delete the writer. Once the object gets deleted, all the features get returned to disk. So let's try this. I have this blocks layer, and I'm going to run this. Fix the import. And so let's run this. And now you can see my output file was saved here. And let's go and check the output file. So this is the output file that was created from the same class. No change in the output, but instead of using pandas, we switched to using the QGIS file writer class, which allows you to save the files the same way QGIS does it. Go and try this out. Go and take the code from section 11.2 copy paste it into console, select a layer. Again, still no parcels layer, that is still too large. Your QGIS might hang for this. Just try this on the blocks layer and see if the output works. After this, we're going to kind of package everything in a way that you can run on even very large layers.